What is up, guys? On this episode of I Dig the Rig, we're checking out my rig, the 1986 Suzuki Samurai. Oh. So this is my 1986 Suzuki Samurai. I've had this thing for a few years and we've made a few mods to it now. So the engine is still the 1.3 liter 4-cylinder Suzuki Samurai engine. We've only modded out a few things there. The biggest one is it is now running on propane instead of the carburetor, which has been one of the best upgrades we've made for this thing. Other than that, we have some power steering and an upgraded radiator, pretty stock otherwise. The engine goes down into the stock Suzuki Samurai transmission. Of course, we've had some rebuilds, some small things like upgrading the bushings and the shifter and whatnot. After that, we've got the Suzuki Samurai transfer case. A few upgrades there. We've got the 6.4:1 gears. Those are the Sumo gears. Those have been really good to us. We've got the heavy duty front output and the Trail Tough twisted shift kit so we can get too low when we're on the trail, need to give that front axle a breaker, you know, maybe on the tight turns. Stock Samurai drive shafts, both with spacers on them. The rear axle is stock Samurai. It has 373 gears, a Spartan locker, and 26 spline chromoly shafts. We did the SJ410 backing plate mod so we can pull the axle shafts out without taking the drums off, which is really nice, even though we've never broken a shaft back there. The axle housing itself has had a lot of modifications. We've got the diff armor on the face of it, a truss over the back of it, and then skids along the whole bottom of it that are about, I think, 3/16 thick, that just make it so we can skid over all those obstacles when we're dragging those axles. The front axle is very similar. It's the Samurai stock axle with 373 gears, Spartan locker, 26 spline chromoly shafts, and then the housing's had a lot of changes there too. We've got the diff armor on the front, we've got a truss up there, knuckle gussets, got the ball gusset, a bunch of armor on the bottom of the axle tubes once again to slide over, high steer. Tires were running a 33 1050 on a 15-inch wheel. The wheels have 2.5-inch back spacing, perfect for a Samurai this size. Gets those tires sticking out a little bit more, gives you a little bit more width. The tires are just BFG all-terrains. I actually got them pretty much for free since they were on another vehicle that I picked up and I wasn't going to use them on there. To fit this size tire, we've got a spring over using the low range off-road spring over kit. That was a really nice kit to just have all the parts at once to be able to do that. The lift, I don't know, I'd say we're about at 6.5, something like that. The reason why I don't know is because in the back we're running 2-inch Samurai springs that are reverse eye, and then in the front we're running a stock Samurai spring, but with the missing link setup, an extra 2 leaves added to the pack. So the lift is kind of, you know, I'd have to go through and just add it all up, but yeah, my guess is around 6.5, 7. So we built this Samurai to be a crawler, which sometimes seems a little bit rare. You see him using those high RPMs to get through the mud and the snow and everything. We like to go slow in the rocks, and that's what I built this thing to do. We normally do trails like Rubicon or Sourgrass or something like that. Anything out in the Sierras is what we prefer to do, but really as long as there's tight obstacles, we'll take the Samurai through it and give it a shot. Like all short wheelbase vehicles, this thing does really well in tight areas. So anytime there's a lot of big rocks and you're just trying to squeeze through them, obviously this thing's gonna do really well. Just the size, being able to squeeze into things is really good. That way we don't have to go over the giant obstacles like a lot of the bigger trucks. So we can hang with a lot more modded trucks, even with something this small, just because of its size. The places where this does not do well are the places that all short wheelbase vehicles don't do well. So for us, that's any type of steep angles, climbs. It doesn't want to climb. It's got all 4 climbing on at the same time, and it just feels really tippy. We spend a lot of our life on 3 wheels when we're in the Samurai. I think Samurai people get used to that pretty quick. I never have. I can see my tire off the ground, you know, sometimes, and I'm just like, hope that comes down soon. I'm always on a tight budget because I have a few different projects I'm working on, so I try to not break too much because that just means downtime and more money. So we haven't broken a whole lot on the Samurai. The only thing I can really think of is our first time on the Rubicon, we had no power steering and it was just the mechanical linkage down to the stock steering box. and I had a lot of play in it. I kept looking at everything, couldn't find it. It wasn't until we got back to the staging area that I noticed that the rag joint on the steering column linkage was shredded, and it was just 2 bolts kind of hanging on there. Really not a bad break at all. We ended up replacing that with a solid spacer. I forget exactly what they call it, but it's a rag joint eliminator, and we haven't had that problem. My favorite modification to this vehicle would be, really it's a close call between a couple different things. The propane kit on the front for the engine has really made it easy to keep it alive and run at any angle instead of the carbureted engine. The gears super low makes it a lot easier to drive, and yeah, the hydraulic assist steering has been a game changer. But I'd have to go with the 6.4 gears. Without those, I think we just couldn't even wheel this thing. I especially couldn't. I would just be burning up the clutch and stalling it out even more than I already do. But 6.4-to-1 gears have been a game changer. Highly recommend. If there's one thing I would do differently, I would definitely not go with the XTD clutch I went with. I went with the stage 2 clutch, thinking it would hold up better. And it must be for like a more of an on-road or a mud situation. There's just no play in the clutch now. I can't feather it pretty much at all. It's either off or on. It makes it very hard to crawl this thing, and it gets like a really jerky motion, which I don't really care for. So I would definitely not do that if I was gonna mess with the clutch again. The best value mod I've had for this, I would say, are the dome lights. I don't know why, but I am just like a stickler for dome lights. It kind of, you don't realize how bad they are until you need them at night. The Samurai one is really bad. Even if you put a new bulb in it, it just doesn't work great. So I ended up getting some extra ditch lights that I had that I wasn't gonna use, mounted those up on the roll bar, and they are like way too bright. But I love it because you can see everything in there. And if I turn them on at night, the whole cab just lights up like a beacon, you know, so if somebody needs to see where we're camped or whatever, they can find us. So when other people see the Samurai on the trail, I think probably one of two things. They either think that it's cute and small and it'd be great if it could make it to the end of the trail, but it can't, or they think that Samurai is badass and I know what those things can do. I don't know which boat you're in. Before I was a Samurai person, I was in the first one. I thought, yeah, these things are so tiny and weak, I don't know what they could really do. But now after having one for a few years and wheeling them, it's really the limit of the driver. These things can just surprise you in every way. And I always talk about how they're a scaled down version of a Wrangler basically. So a Samurai on 33s, in my opinion, is as capable as a two-door Jeep on 35s or 37s. My next mod for the Samurai is gonna be a huge one. That's why I wanted to do this video, because we're about to change everything up. After you wheel a stock wheelbase Samurai for a while, you start to see it does have some limitations as far as size of obstacles and, you know, the steepness of them and whatnot. Plus we need more gearing. I just want it to get lower. We're at 87-to-1 right now, and for me it's just not low enough in the Samurai. I want to be able to go slower with less effort. Only a couple ways to do that. What we kind of narrowed it down to is we need to go 1 ton in 40s. Yeah, it sounds kind of ridiculous, but the Dana 70, Dana 60 combo can go 717 in the axles. And with just that gearing upgrade alone, we'll go from 87 to like 167-to-1. Axle's that big, why not go big tires? So we're about to stretch this thing, 1 ton at 40s. We're really looking forward to it. I wanted to get this video out before we tear it apart. Will I ever sell this rig? I don't know. This one, I have had more fun with this than any other rig I've ever built or wheeled, so it would be hard to sell it. I really don't know though. I wish I say I could keep it forever, but life happens sometimes. My advice to anybody building a Samurai is plan for the future. If you put all of your money into the stock engine or into these stock axles, you have to understand that eventually you're gonna reach the limit on what that engine or those axles can do, or really anything. So as I've built this, I've tried to plan for the next step and be able to use the same parts over and over again. If you're on a budget like me, then that's really something you have to do if you want to be continually upgrading it and not breaking the bank.